I
Very
appreciate,
correlated.
I appreciate you guys. Last week we finished chapter 10 and got a quick start on chapter 11. God promised to regather Israel from around the world in what we studied. And then there was a prophecy of Jesus' first coming, which said he would have many troubles, but that he would show his power by controlling the weather, which he did. There were also prophecies about Egypt and Assyria's judgment and restoration. And the first three verses of chapter 11 were prophecies concerning trees in Lebanon and Bashan. Um, and these prophecies have been fulfilled. Literally, the 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 thing about the trees burning up and stuff, that all happened. But we also learned that trees often represent individual leaders. And of these trees, and if these trees represent leaders, it was unclear from where we were which leaders they present. We'll pick that up again a little bit today as we get into our study today. So we're gonna be studying. We're gonna be in Zechariah chapter 11, and we're gonna go through it a little bit at a time. There's a lot here. Um, Gary, could you read Zechariah 11, 4 through 6?
Yes. Zechariah 11, 4 through 6. Thus said the Lord my God, become shepherd of the flock doomed to slaughter. Those who buy them slaughter them and go unpunished. And those who sell them say, blessed be the Lord, I have become rich, and their own shepherds have no pity on them. For I will no longer have pity on the inhabitants of this land, declares the Lord. Behold, I will cause each of them to fall into the hands of his neighbor, and each in the hand of his king, and they shall crush the land, and I will deliver none from their hand.
No, there you are.
So God was using Zechariah as a picture, as an object lesson. So Zechariah was going to be an object lesson. He says, become the shepherd of a flock doomed to slaughter. And apparently Zechariah did that. He says, and so um, the picture here, the flock in this case represents Israel. Israel was a flock doomed to slaughter. And we have to say we're looking from Zechariah forward in time. So what did God say about the flock in this passage? Well, it says there that they're doomed to slaughter. And this prophecy has been fulfilled kind of several times since it was issued. I mean, at the time of Zechariah, they'd already been defeated and carried off into exile and come back. A few of them had come back to Judah. They had a bit of freedom during the time of the Persians, but it didn't last because as the Persians went out of power, the Greeks came into power, and they never gave Israel any chance to be independent or anything like that. And then came the Romans.
Yeah.
And they've been oppressed ever since. And many, many of them have died. Think of the Spanish Inquisition. We all talk about the Spanish, you study about the Spanish Inquisition. It was about exterminating Jews. That's what the Spanish Inquisition was all about.
Mm-hmm.
They were going after the Jews in Spain.
Yeah, they did.
And they did. And Spain has never been a nation ever since.
Well, strong
A
nation.
strong nation. They were ascendant at the time, not anymore. But then think about what happened with Hitler and what happened under Stalin in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Many millions of Jews were murdered, exterminated in the worst, most vile way.
And I read just this last week that the Jewish population has yet to recover. It hasn't yet recovered to what it was.
So yes, They were a flock doomed to slaughter. And then God said about them that the leaders of the flock cared nothing for them. They just used them to get rich. They had no pity on the flock. Boy, that's hard. But that's that's really the way it has been. So I want to move from there into the rest of Zechariah chapter 11. And I'm going to take it one or two verses at a time because there's just a lot in this passage. So, JB, could you read verse 7 of chapter 11?
Yes. So I fed the flocks for slaughter, particularly the poor of the flock. I took for myself two staffs. The one I called beauty, and the other I called bonds, and I fed the flock.
Okay. In the ESV, it says that the two staffs, one was named favor and the other named union. Same kind of thing. It says he tended the flock, but this was a flock doomed to be slaughtered by the sheep traders, and he took control of it. So it's important. He took two staffs, favor and union. The two staffs that he took speak of God. He took them because God was leading him to do that. He had a staff named favor and a staff named union. And God showed his favor to Israel over many, many years. And union was the whole idea of bringing the northern kingdom together with the southern kingdom into one united nation. And only God could do that. So the staffs speak of God. So, Barbara, could you read verse 8?
Let me just ask, the staff was also used for protection. So does that mean that was God's protection over them at the time?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, hold on. In 1 month, I destroyed the 3 shepherds, but I became impatient with them, and they also detested me.
Isn't that interesting? So there were 3 shepherds that he took over for. And it says that he destroyed them, meaning he got him out of the way. It didn't mean he killed them or anything. It just that they were let go. There are many opinions among Bible scholars about who the 3 shepherds represent. In fact, one of my commentaries said that there's about 40 opinions that they could find, and they all differ. But he said the best one is one of the oldest ones, and I was reading. I found a commentary by Walvoord, John Walvoord, on the subject, and he agrees with this other commentary I have. So I think it's probably right. And it says that the 3 shepherds represent the 3 kinds of leaders of Israel: the kings, the priests, and the prophets.
Makes sense.
The kings, the priests, and the prophets were supposed to be the leaders who led the people to know God. They were supposed to be the people who would make sure the people of Israel had the food, had the shelter, had all the things that they needed so that they could live and also worship God and love God and know about God. And they failed. And
That would leave out judges, all right? Judges, I wonder where they would.
The judges were only for a period of time.
yeah, it would you would play I would place the judges in the same place as the kings.
Kings.
Yeah.
Flash prophets, yeah.
And God certainly became impatient with these leaders in Israel. That's what he said, but I became impatient with them, and they also detested me. Yeah, I guess they would have. But think of when Jesus was on earth the first time. He was coming he came to save us from our sin, to save Israel, to bring salvation to Israel from their sin and their lostness. And he declared himself, I am the good shepherd. And but the Jewish leaders, he was very impatient with the Jewish leaders. And rightly so, because they didn't
Tested
care,
him.
they didn't care anything for the people.
Mm.
Remember what he said? He said, you put all these loads on their shoulders to carry, but you don't even lift a little finger to help them carry it. He was very, very annoyed with them. And they truly detested him to the point that they led him out to be crucified.
Yes, they did.
This truly is prophetic of Jesus Christ in his first coming.
Interesting.
Took me a while to see that. Bob, could you read verses 9 through 11?
So I said, I will not be your shepherd. What is it to die? Let it die. What is it to be destroyed? Let it be destroyed. And let those who are left devour, and let those who are left devour the flesh of one another. And I took my staff, favor, and I broke it, annulling the covenant that I had made with all the peoples. So it was annulled on that day. And the sheep traders who were watching me knew that it was the word of the Lord.
So when he broke the staff favor, all these traders and everybody that was watching him realized that he was trying to tell them something from God. So what was he trying to tell them? Israel had sinned against God, and God was extraordinarily patient with them for hundreds of years. Over and over again, God sent the prophets and so forth to try to bring them back into relationship with him, and they just refused. God was merciful to them to the point when his justice had to be fulfilled. He had to execute his justice, and that is what limited his mercy. God's mercy, I think, can be totally unlimited, but sometimes it's limited by his justice. He's perfect in both sides. At some time, at some point, dealing with Israel, God's justice had to be take over. And then I thought about it, God made a covenant with Israel at Mount Sinai. And the covenant at Mount Sinai was a conditional covenant. The covenant that God made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when you read in Genesis and study those covenants that God made with them, those were unconditional covenants. He said, I will, I will, I will, I will. And there was nothing in his I wills that said you have to do anything.
If you, then I, yeah.
There was never any if. It was I will, and I will. But at Mount Sinai, when God met with Israel, it was, if you love me, if you follow me, if you do this, if you do that, I will, I will, I will. It was conditional. And all you have to if you want to know about how it was conditional, study Deuteronomy chapter 28. It's a very long. I thought about actually reading some of it tonight, but it's such a long chapter. It's like way over 30 or 40 verses. It's really long. And the first like 10, 15 verses are how God says, if you do this, I will do this great thing for you, and I will do this great thing for you, and I will do this great thing for you.
68 verses long.
68 verses long. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I kind of think of the same principle along the lines of 2 Peter 3:9, that he's patient with us, not wanting everyone to come to repentance. That patience is going to run out eventually. That mercy is going to run out.
That's
It's
right.
going to go to judgment.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
There's a time schedule.
There's a time schedule and God knows what it is.
Yeah.
But so it's God's covenant with Israel is well documented in Deuteronomy 20, chapter 28, where he says, if you do all this good, man, I'm going to bless you forever. But if you do all this bad, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And it talks about all the judgment and curses that they're going to bring down on our heads if they don't love and obey him. And then here we have the staff called favor, and it says that I took my staff favor and broke it, annulling the covenant I had made with all the peoples. God broke his staff of favor with Israel, and he annulled the covenant with them. The covenant that he made with them on Mount Sinai, he annulled it. It was over. And when Jesus came, he established a new covenant with Israel and all mankind. He wrote it with his blood. The new covenant is also conditional. And the only condition is faith in Jesus Christ. That's the only condition. Faith in Jesus Christ. And this is documented. We studied it when we studied through Hebrews. The new covenant under Jesus Christ. It's documented in Hebrews. But it's the condition of the new covenant is faith in Jesus Christ. I can't say that enough. And it's available to all of us. And it seems so simple, but we make it very complex. It seems so simple, but but after Jesus returns as the King of Kings in his second coming, salvation for the Jews will be unconditional. And I know that from studying Ezekiel.
At the end.
At the end, when he returns as the King of Kings, all of them will be saved at one point in time. And God says, I'm going to take away their heart of stone and give them a heart of flesh. And my spirit will be within them, and they will love me and they will follow me. All the surviving Jews will be saved at one point, and it will be unconditional. It will be a God thing, because that's the only way it's ever going to happen, is for God to do it.
True.
And at that point, he's going to do it. That's really something to look forward to. Okay. Nancy, could you read verses 12 and 13?
Then I said to them, if it seems good to you, give me my wages, but if not, keep them. And they weighed out as my wages 30 pieces of silver. Then the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter, the Lord's price at which I was priced by them. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of the Lord to the potter.
You couldn't get any
So
clearer than that.
that's Judas.
Judas, yeah, exactly.
And the potter's field.
Mhm.
This is a specific prophecy that was so clear to us looking backwards at how it was perfectly fulfilled in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
There's some interesting things here that I want to point out. 30 pieces of silver. 30 pieces of silver were the price for a slave. It's a slave's price. In Exodus 21:32 says, if an ox gores a slave, male or female, the owner shall give their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. It's the price for a slave. So when they paid Judas 30 pieces of silver to betray Jesus, they were paying him the price for a slave. That's what they thought of him. He's just another slave.
Mm.
I think, wow. And as Matthew 26:15 says, and they said, what will you give me if I deliver him over to you? Judas said this, what will you give me if I deliver him over to you? And they paid him 30 pieces of silver. That's not a coinkydink.
No.
It's not a coincidence. God purposed it.
That's like you said, they got a good deal on Joseph today when we were talking about they got him for 20 pieces of silver.
That's
Right.
right. Mhm.
He was working.
No, but yet that's a type.
That type in it. Yeah.
Joseph, really, we're studying Joseph on Sunday morning, and what a beautiful representation of Jesus he is. He's a type of Jesus Christ. He shows us who Jesus was by the way he was and the things he went through. Um,
Yeah.
but this prophecy in this passage is so specifically fulfilled. We already read part of the fulfillment in Matthew 26, but let me read Matthew 27, verses 6 through 10. Actually, I'm going to let Martha read it.
But the chief priest, taking the pieces of silver, said, "It is not lawful to put them into the treasury, since it's blood money." Well, they didn't seem to mind that, though. So they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field as a burial place for strangers. Therefore, that field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what was spoken of by the prophet Jeremiah, saying, "And they took 30 pieces of silver, the price of him on whom a price had been set by some of the sons of Israel, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord directed me." So 30 pieces of silver is actually in two different places in the Old Testament, besides the picture with Joseph.
Well, it's not in Jeremiah.
Oh, it's spoken by the prophet Jeremiah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's people that will read this and think, oh, there's a mistake in the Bible. He meant to say Zechariah, but probably not. I did a bunch of research on this. The quote from Matthew adds some confusion because it includes Jeremiah rather than Zechariah. However, Jeremiah also prophesied associated with the potter and a field for burial, and that's in Jeremiah 19, 1 to 13. So what Matthew did was he combined these two prophecies, and Jeremiah is the more well known of the prophets, and he just associated with Jeremiah. But there's no dissonance in what is said in Jeremiah or in Zechariah and with what happened. There's no problem with that. It's just that the name Jeremiah is there instead of Zechariah, and so you can't say, well, there's an error in
He may have said it and they just didn't write it down.
yeah. But the two prophecies of Jeremiah and Zechariah blended so much together in their fulfillment in Jesus Christ. Because in Zechariah, there's nothing says you're throwing the money to the potter, and you don't know about the potter's field until you go back to Jeremiah, and that's where Jeremiah is told to buy a potter's field. And so it's like the two things, you bring them all together and it becomes one. And the passage is Jeremiah in chapter 19, verses 1 through 13. So if you want to go back and study that, I would encourage you to do that. Very interesting. This is a great prophetic thing. It's just so clearly Jesus. There's just no doubt about it. And then in verse 14, it says, "Then I broke my staff union, annulling the brotherhood between Judah and Israel." So he broke the staff union where God was talking about bringing Israel together, and basically said, I'm done with you guys. I'm done with you. They will be brought back together again when Jesus comes back as the king, but
Mhm.
not before that.
Yeah.
However, during the period of great judgment that we call the Great Tribulation, God's going to pick, was it 144,000, 12,000 people from every tribe to be his special messengers and witnesses. Someone from every tribe. So God's not done with Israel yet.
No.
Okay, David, it's your turn. Can you read verses 15 to 17?
Yes. Then the Lord said to me, take once more the equipment of a foolish shepherd, for behold, I am raising up in the land a shepherd who does not care for those being destroyed, or seek the young, or heal the maimed, or nourish the healthy, but devours the flesh of the fat ones, tearing off even their hooves. Woe to my worthless shepherd who deserts the flock. May the sword strike his arm and his right eye. Let his arm be wholly withered, his right eye utterly blinded.
I believe that this is a prophecy of the beast in Revelation. His description is found in Revelation chapter 13. I don't want to go and read all that now. But we know from Daniel chapter 9, verses 27, that the beast will begin with a treaty with Israel, and that will allow them to rebuild the temple and resume sacrifices. And then a year and a half later, 3.5 years later, the beast will break the treaty and put up an image of himself in the temple. And this is what it says I'm going to read what it says in Daniel 9:27. And he shall make a strong covenant with many for 1 week. And for half of the week, he shall put an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abomination shall come one who makes desolate until the decreed end is poured out on the desolator.
Yeah.
And it says here in Zechariah 17, it says, woe to my worthless shepherd who deserts the flock. May the sword strike his arm in his right eye. Let his arm be wholly withered, his right eye utterly blinded. The beast will
Jeremiah 23:1 says something similar. Woe to the shepherds who destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture.
Exactly.
But the beast will be destroyed by the King of Kings. And he'll be thrown alive into the lake of fire for eternal torment. It'll be the King of Kings who destroys him. But when Jesus came the first time, we read this in John chapter 10, he says, I am the good shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
I am the good shepherd. My sheep hear my voice and know me and follow me.
Yeah.
A stranger they will not follow.
A stranger, he's also the gate to the sheepfold. We enter through him. We are his sheep. We are his sheep. And he's our shepherd. And he is still the good shepherd. He's watching over us, his bride. He's watching over those in Israel who have believed in him. But one day they will all believe when he comes back and becomes the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Questions or comments on this passage? Next week.
I saw one thing here that his salary was based on the weight of the silver and not the number of coins. So they must have had a price per ounce or per whatever they had measured by, because it said they weighed it out. If it
Mhm.
was by coin, they just give them 30 coins and that would be it.
But no, they waited.
So-
Yeah, they always had scales and they always made sure that their money weighed exactly the right amount.
Because people would shave off the sides.
Yeah, yeah, they cheated.
Coins have rims on them.
Mhm.
So you can't see where they'd scrape. They did that for millennia
Yeah.
till modern coinage.
I just kind of think in my mind, I don't know, what a great hope it is that we have a good shepherd. Because when you think of Israel right now, what do they rely on? Are they just kind of on themselves? I mean, I don't know. I guess
Yeah. Mhm.
Their army.
it's really, isn't that a sad commentary?
When you do, people that don't have God in their lives, I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I feel sorry for them.
It's bad.
It's
How do they have any hope?
They don't.
they
Yeah,
don't have any
they
hope.
don't. No, they can't.
And I've been spending a lot of time studying about Joseph for Sunday mornings, and I'm just finishing a book, a novel by Joyce Landorf that she wrote in the 80s about Joseph. And she followed the Bible really closely. And the beauty about Joseph is he just loved God and depended on God. And he never ever gave up on he just clung to God.
Stay faithful.
He stayed faithful.
Be quick.